there, welcome back. Today we're talking about the NFC West. And to kick things off, we're going to go over to the Arizona Cardinals. Carson Palmer, a veteran of the game, has usually been a top 10 QB. This year, I think just about everyone's down on him. I think age has finally caught up to Carson Palmer, and he's kind of not draftable unless you're doing a 2 QB setting. I do think this is an offense that will put up some points. They've got David Johnson. Hello, this is my cat, everyone. This is my cat's tail. I apologize for this. David Johnson, the fantasy football superstar, is the #1 player in fantasy, and it is well deserved. If you're going to spend money on one of the top running backs in the game, don't go after Le'Veon Bell. Go after David Johnson. He's a sure thing. The man's going to catch like 5 catches a game, so in PPR he's a stud. He's going to average 20 touches a game, so in standard settings he's a stud. This is a certifiable #1 running back for the next 5 years. I don't know if he's going to push LaDainian Tomlinson for one of the best fantasy football backs of all time. Moving on, let's cover wide receivers. Larry Fitzgerald, one of the most consistent wide receivers in the game. Carson Palmer loves this guy. Seems like every year Larry Fitzgerald gets ranked past the top 20 wide receivers and proves everyone wrong. I think he'll do it again this year, and I think he's a very good wide receiver too. John Brown is on the roster, and he will not be on my fantasy team. This is an injury-prone guy. Last year, I think he got sickle cell disease, so I'll give him some credit. It doesn't count as a typical NFL injury. But this is not a guy I want to own. People will pull back 2015 numbers and say, hey, this guy was the man over there. I don't believe it. I'm all about volume and targets and consistency, and I just don't see it in John Brown. As far as tight ends goes, Jermaine Gresham is the guy to own in Arizona. He's not a flashy guy, but he's probably going to be a consistent threat. Definitely more of a tight end #2 than a tight end #1. Let's move on to the Los Angeles Rams. Being from LA, I'm excited to see what the Los Angeles Rams have brought to their roster this season. I think Jared Goff is going to make noticeable improvements across the board as a quarterback in the NFL. However, I think it'll be more noticeable from a true football standpoint rather than from a fantasy one. He's not a guy you're going to want to own. He's not going to be putting up flashy points. He's not going to have 3 or 4 touchdowns in a game. But they have added some fun weapons for him to work around, and I do think Todd Gurley's going to have a bounce-back year, which should help the team across the board. Speaking of Todd Gurley, I think he's going to have a bounce-back year. I think he's going to get a lot of help from the fact that Sammy Watkins and Robert Woods have been added to the roster, and they don't have to depend on Tavon Austin being their #1 wide receiver anymore. By the way, I think he's a huge bust, and you shouldn't be drafting him in any of your drafts. But Todd Gurley, he's got 3 workhorse back, so he's going to be first, second, third down, he's going to be on the field. And he's going to be catching a lot of balls this year. I know they said they wanted to drop it back, but with Lance Dunbar getting injured, Malcolm Brown's not a pass-catching back. So I think Todd Gurley has the potential to average 3 or 4 catches a game. And, well, I think he's going to get into the end zone more than he did last year. Moving on to wide receivers, I think Sammy Watkins, he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's been banged up in years past. He's fully healthy. He just got moved from the Bills. He's in a new location. Let's face it, everyone would rather live in Los Angeles than in Buffalo, New York. So I think Sammy Watkins has a lot to prove. And I think the Rams as a whole have a lot to prove now that they've gotten rid of Jeff Fisher and are going to have a much more exciting offense. Having Sammy Watkins and Robert Woods on the same field, they know each other. They're both from the Bills, and they're going to help each other out. They're going to pull attention from each other. I think Sammy Watkins, 77 catches, over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. Robert Woods, more of a PPR guy, I think, this season. Will be working out of the slot. By the way, you're going to be avoiding all of their tight ends. So that covers the first half of the NFC West. Tune in next time, and I'll be covering the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. Thanks, I'm Luke Perziani.